I'm wondering what you miss about the way your town was a few decades ago. Was it life slower? Were there more independent businesses? Less people, less traffic, less crime? We are talking about Byron Bay to start with, but let's broaden it out to this region as a whole. Give me a call and reminisce on 1300 65 9994. John Wright, as I said, and his family used to run the Byron newspaper in the age when anniversaries, birthdays and engagements dominated the pages. He's gone through his archives and posted some old photos and stories on a Facebook page he's created called Know What I Miss About Byron Bay. And he joins us now. John Wright, good morning.
Good morning, Pamela.
This is a fabulous idea, John, I have to say. Congratulations. I have so much enjoyed looking through the comments that people have posted. Did you think that you would get such a good response?
Well, to be honest, Pamela, no, I didn't. It started out as a conversation between many of the locals will remember Mexican mix first entertainer Jeff Dutton and I. We've known each other for 52 years now.
Right.
And I said, you know what I miss about Byron Bay? I miss the whaling station. Oh. And he said, oh, you know what and we just went on, and I work in search engine marketing and SEO and websites, and I thought, oh, I'm going to put a Facebook page up. And that's where it started.
That's where it started, and it has just grown enormously. And you mentioned Mexican Mix there in 1977. There from Peter has posted a comment and a photo. My brother Matt and I, it's a newspaper photo clipping, my brother Matt and I at Mexican Mix in 1977. I feel hungry all of a sudden. And then there are 15 comments in the string. Sabrina says, I remember the food was hearty. Great stuff from Sharon, and it goes on and on and on.
Indeed,
people have really grasped this well. What was Byron like in the 70s?
Well, it was great, but reminiscing's a great thing, and you can sometimes paint look at the past with rose-coloured glasses. But it was uncomplicated. You could leave your car unlocked. You could leave your house unlocked. And it was clean and uncluttered with people running away from themselves.
Well, you mentioned that you missed the whaling station, and I wouldn't imagine that that would be something that you would see through rose-coloured glasses.
No, it was more a case of the whaling station used to smell when a northerly blew. And nobody, I don't think, used to look forward to, oh, good, the northerlies are coming, let's have a smell of the station. But it was symbolic, I guess, in my mind. I haven't thought about it, but it was kind of symbolic of all the things that once were there and are no longer there. I didn't miss the station per se, but no. I missed the time.
Yeah, and the things that were associated with that time. There was the jetty as well?
Oh, yes, indeed. The jetty was still, at that stage, being used commercially, obviously, by the whaling station.
When did you first come or make your home in Byron Bay, or have you always lived in the area? Yes,
I'm a Byron boy. I was born in Bangalow Hospital simply because our family used old Dr. Gray in Bangalow. But, no, Byron boy, 1954 onwards.
And what is it about Byron at the moment that you would like to see perhaps changed a little?
Well, look, and I hesitate to rile any residents, but I thought last time I was there it looked a bit grubby. But beyond that, you can't change. You have to grow, and while Byron Bay, to me, is too big, too bustly, too much traffic in the main street, I've got a 16-year-old daughter who just thinks it's the best place on the planet because she doesn't know the past.
The past, of course, and she will have her own memories.
Oh, indeed she will.
You don't live in Byron Bay any longer?
No, I live in the North Gold Coast now.
And the North Gold Coast. What took you there?
I sold the Byron News in 1993 and had 2 years in Bali, came back and did 4 years with the company that bought my paper in the end, the Northern, or APN, Australian Provincial Newspapers. And then I came to the coast for a year contract at a printer's up here to upgrade their pre-press. and just loved it.
Well, our guest this morning is John Wright. He is the creator of Know What I Miss About Byron Bay and former owner, as he said, of the Byron News. And we're reminiscing a little because his Facebook site has an enormous number of contributors, of members, and the comments and photographs that will bring back a lot of memories are extraordinary. And if you would like to share your experiences of Byron Bay 30 or 40 years ago, you can do so 1300 65 99994, and we'll broaden it out. It doesn't just necessarily have to be the Byron Bay area, but we would like to hear from you this morning. John Wright, I'm wondering, in terms of the newspaper, what role it played in the community?
Well, initially it was begun because my mother and father and I was an apprentice, and they had a small printing business, and my father just thought it was time for the paper. We had a paper originally in the town called The Record, and it went the way papers sometimes do, and then a new paper came out later called The Beacon, the Byron Bay Beacon, and it also folded, and my father just thought the town's big enough to let's have a go. He did some preparation work. He had a list of businesses and a letter to send them, and we got busy, and it sat in the drawer for a month or two. And then Mick Cambray, the original Mexican Mick, came to my father and said, "Listen, Reg, I'd like to produce a newspaper, and I'd like you to print it." And the old man was quick on the uptake in those days, and he just went, "Oh, we've already started, Mick." And he was able to bring out the list and bring out the letter, and Mick just said, threw his hands up and just said, I'll drop the idea, but I will advertise on your front page every issue forever.
Fabulous.
And he did.
And how big was it when it first started?
Oh, very small. It was like a narrow tabloid size, so like the Northern Star currently, but with about 2 inches cut off the right-hand side.
Oh.
And it was printed on an old multi-lith press, and it was, the first issue was, if I'm not wrong, 8 pages.
8 pages. And was there news, or was it more a social analysis and record of the time?
Well, we decided that there would never be a budget in the beginning to have reporters and journalists, so my father included in that letter, basically, hey, we're starting a paper, we need you to advertise, and any news you want to go in has to be with us by 9 a.m. Monday, or you miss out.
And it was only printed once a week?
Once a week.
So it was, I guess, like a gazette, the Byron Gazette.
I guess, yeah. We went through a whole bunch of names, and, with including Light, the Byron Light, and all that sort of thing. And in the end, we just said, look, it's a newspaper, let's call it the Byron News, and that's what it was. Well,
let's talk more about that in just a moment, John, but we have David from Rosebank who's called in. David, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Now, what would you like to share?
I just want to say hello to John. I remember, John, when they first started, I'm from the Nomads, and we got on very well together, and I was down the old office the other day, and I was telling my son the history of the Byron News, and here he comes on the news today.
Good on you, Dave.
All right. I'll catch up with you one day, John.
Good on you, buddy.
Cheers, mate.
And, John, you remember David there from Rosebank?
I remember, I think.
Okay. Whoops, I'll just put you back on.
In Byron Bay as well as in the Rolling Stones. A lot of that was, if you remember it, you weren't really there.
You weren't really there. Edna from Gunnellabar also with us this morning. Edna?
Hello. I'm one of the real old ones. I had a block of land up on Lighthouse Hill for $100 as long as my husband built a beach house there within the year.
Really?
So we had a lovely view. We were up Lighthouse Hill and we turned up this track, and it's a scream now. It's got a millionaire's house on it and a big sign up, private road, keep out.
Well, how were you able to access land for $100?
Well, they wanted to, I don't know why they wanted to get rid of this lovely land up there, but they did. And as long as you built a house there, well, fortunately, my husband was a builder. So he certainly got in and built us a lovely beach house, and I don't care who's there now, they never had the fun that my dear family. I had 2 boys and 2 girls, only the other way round, 2 girls first and then 2 boys, and we had parties there and everything.
And how long did you live there, Edna?
I didn't live there.
Oh, it was your beach house.
Beach house, you see. Went down each week till the teenagers became wanting to do their thing. Then we found we were going down, me to clean the house and Bill to do all the mowing, which was quite a lot, and on a hill sort of thing. And we said, blow this, so we decided to sell it.
Oh, and I have to tell you...
quite a few years.
Edna, I have to tell you there's a house for sale now in that spot. Do you know how much it's worth or going for?
About $1 million.
It's going for $12 million.
$12 million? Well, that's what I said. I knew it was a millionaire's house.
Just a small bit of change.
Just a little change. And I have to say, nobody had any more fun than we did.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Our dear family.
That is fabulous. Thank you, Edna, letting us know about that $100 or £100. Was it £100, did she say, John?
Yes, £100.
£100. And that would have been one of the enormous changes that you would have seen over the years, was the real estate prices.
Oh, indeed, Pamela. In fact, one of the photos that just to cut in, the photos that have been put up on the Facebook page would be probably 80-90% from contributors. But one of the ones that I did put in was an ad from a Byron News showing half acre for $160,000. And when I came back from Indonesia and looked around the ever-increasing number of real estate offers, I was stunned at the prices.
$160,000 for a half acre, did you say?
Yes.
And that was in the 70s? Or later?
Look, I can't... It would have been later.
Yeah.
Because it was from the Byron News when it went to A4 size.
Yeah, but even so, from £100 to $12 million.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not bad. We've got some more calls, and if you would like to join us this morning, we're reminiscing a little because we're talking with John Wright, who is the creator of Know What I Miss About Byron Bay. It's a Facebook page, and he and his family used to run the Byron newspaper back in an age when anniversaries, birthdays and engagements dominated the pages. And joining us also from Grafton is Robert. Robert, welcome to Mornings.
Hello, how are you?
Some memories, I'm well, some memories of Byron.
I've got some beautiful memories. I was born in Bangalow in 1941, and we lived in a little 2-bedroom cottage in Ruskin Street, just down from the Catholic Church.
Yes.
And I don't know whether you remember that bell tower at the Catholic Church.
John?
Yeah, the old one, yeah.
Yeah, the old bell tower. Well, we used to ring that bell at 6 in the morning, 12 midday and 6 at night. And you could hear the bell ringing all over Byron Bay.
Oh, you could, indeed.
Yes.
Why were you ringing the bell?
At the Catholic Church.
Oh, so it was for the church?
Yes.
For mass and stuff, I guess, eh?
And the bell now is sitting outside the new church. They've got a new brick church there. The old church used to be an old weatherboard building. And I think I remember your shop, the news agent. Was that where Don Disson, he had a shop across...
No, that was Bernie Donlan's news agency. Our first shop was built in front of the house in 8 Bangalow Road.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I bought the paper in 1986, I moved it out to the old gymnasium at the edge of town on the Ballina side.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, you know a lot of my relations. All my relations are still over there.
Oh, yeah?
My first cousin used to work at Mexican Mix, preparing all the vegetables and that for the food.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You'd know Nola Booth.
Oh, I know Nola well.
Yeah,
she lived just up the road in Browning Street.
Yes, and all the Phelpses.
Oh, indeed.
Yes, and the Irwins.
Absolutely.
Well, they're all my cousins, first cousins.
Okay.
And Robert, do you get back to Byron Bay very often?
Oh, look, when we were kids, I was 7 when we moved over to Grafton, and every school holiday, my brother and sister, we used to catch the old mail train, and we'd go to Byron Bay, and when we get to Bangalow Station, I used to get that excited, and you'd come through the hills there, and then you'd see the lights of Byron Bay. Oh, it was beautiful.
Lovely memories.
It was like Christmas.
Robert, that is lovely. Robert from Grafton.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And the only shops there were the shops from where Mexican Mick was. That used to be a tea tree swamp. Right along there and across the road, and the Lord Byron motel across near the Services Club, that was all tea tree swamp.
Thank you, Robert from Grafton, calling in. Robert and John Wright, reminiscing somewhat there with catching up with the folks that still live in Byron Bay. And John Wright, I'm intrigued. What is Mexican Mix? Was that a bit of an icon of the time?
Mexican Mick, or Mick Cambray, came to town about 1970. The shop, I think, was owned by Ronnie Templeman, and he was... it was just a corner store. Mick bought it and turned it into a Mexican restaurant. I think it was the first restaurant in Australia outside of Taco Bill's in Melbourne. And he was a friend and associate of Taco Bill's. He bought the chips and tacos, I think, from the Bill. And it was just an amazing experience to a town whose only cuisine was good old 3 veg and chops or bangers and mash, and there was one Chinese in the bowling club, if I'm not wrong.
So he was one of the very first.
Oh yes, very, very first.
It's really interesting reading the comments from people who have left and shared their memories. And Natalie says that she loved the Oleander Festival, where we decorate the floats and start up at the beach front and go down the main street to the rec fields. And Kevin says, I can't remember his name, but he used to push the wheelbarrow around and collect things. The council tried to make him stop, but everyone defended him back in the old days when people were for people. And Milton and Diane and a lot of other people said it was Mr. Ford.
Yes, I think so. There's another character that may have been... there might be a bit of blurring in the memories there of... there was a guy called Cliffy Chapman that used to do a bit of that sort of thing.
Yes.
He's actually in one of the photos on the page. But Eric Ford, it may well have been.
Yeah.
I personally remember Eric as having a small truck.
Oh, okay. I was interested to see some of those photos, which really clearly demonstrate that there hasn't been very much development. And one of the photographs shows the track at Wattagoes, and there's nothing there.
Yes, that was Harry Becker's photo, if I'm not wrong, and it was that's Wattagoes Beach was like that. It was a sand road down. I remember once me dad and mum and I went down there in a Morris Minor and got bogged, and Lloyd Wattago, one of the Wattagoes that the beach was named after, came and pulled us out with his Jeep, 4-wheel drive Jeep.
So there has been such a lot of progress and such a lot of development, and you can't stop progress, of course, can you?
No.
I want to get back to the newspaper, and we're going to have news headlines in just a moment, and Eloise Farris-Smith will be with us, and it'll be interesting to ask Eloise about what she misses about Byron Bay, because she grew up there and very much a local. But with the paper... Is there one particular thing that sticks in your memory over the time of producing all of that community information and reflecting what was going on in the community?
Well, there's a number. We haven't covered, even on the page, really, we haven't covered the zircon mining and rutile mining that Byron Bay went through at one point. And they used the fill from that to... fill up, like, for example, under the hospital and lots of the school, and because as whoever it was, just I forgot his name, Robert, I think, said it was a lot of tea tree swamp.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of fill, and it turned out the sand they used was radioactive, and there was all talk about closing the hospital and all this sort of thing. And the Byron News, I was just still quite young, but we got involved in the campaign, and we got a bloke from Lightning Ridge, George was his name, and he had a ginormous sucking machine, and he sucked all the sand out from under all the where it was radioactive, and there was a problem, and then replaced it with the same machine. And that was one issue. Another issue when I had the paper was there was a move to relocate the school in the rec ground. And we felt that that was a memorial to those that had died in the wars, and we fought against it. And as it turns out, instead of relocating the school, they took over a street and expanded the current school. And that was, I felt very strongly about that one. The funniest one is we had no front page picture one week.
Why was that?
Slow news week.
Slow news week.
Even in Byron Bay, we did a slow news week. And,
so what did you do?
Well, we had a phone call that the lighthouse went out. Right. And now, how do you do a photo of the lighthouse going out? So I cut a rectangle of black paper and stuck it on the front page as the front page photo and called it The Night the Light Went Out.
Very
look, there are literally hundreds of memorable things. The Byron News, we had a 20th anniversary at one stage. The front page cartoon was done by an international cartoonist. Name escapes me, but he always had a little dog in his cartoons. And I think it just celebrated its 40th year, so the Wright family put out many hundreds of editions.
Well, it's been an extraordinary, as I said, an extraordinary period of growth and development. Do you get back to Byron Bay very often?
Not terribly often, probably 3 or 4 times a year.
And any favourite spots?
I always like to drive past the old Byron News building. A lot of fond memories there. I always check out our old house where I grew up. But look, I've got to say, I enjoy the food at Byron Bay incredibly. It's
come a long way, and I'm sure the food at Mexican Mix was fabulous. But it was the only place in town, along with the Chinese, wasn't it?
Well, and you had Ryan's Cafe and McGettigan's Cafe. They were just like standard fare, Aussie fare. But I think there's over 160 places now that you can buy food.
It's extraordinary. John Wright, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we've very much enjoyed it, and I know a lot of people have been interested in our conversation this morning and very much interested in your Facebook page. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Pamela, for taking the interest.
26 to 10, this is North Coast Mornings, and we will continue to take your calls. We're reminiscing, really, our memories of what our towns were like 30 or 40 years ago. John Wright was our guest. He and his family used to run the Byron News in the age when anniversaries, birthdays and engagements dominated the pages, and he has created a Facebook page. It's called Know What I Miss About Byron Bay, and lots of contributions there. And I know Eloise Farrow-Smith as a long-time resident of Byron Bay, a girl that was born in Byron Bay or Mullumbimby?
Almost, but you're not a local if you're not born at Byron Bay.
Oh, okay.
Hospital.
Oops. Where were you born?
Oh, well, I was actually born in Brisbane. We moved down when I was about 4 years old.
Oh, well, you're nearly there. Yeah, that's okay. We'll make you a local.
Do you want to know what I miss?
What do you miss?
Oh, look, the thing that I miss most of all is, and it happens to me so often, driving down Fletcher Street, which is just full of all these little, full of homeware shops and all those sorts of bourgeois pursuits. It used to be full of fishermen's cottages, and I miss buying crabs from the fishermen's garages.
Yeah.
We used to go down and get last night's catch, and I just loved the fact that was the fisherman's street, and we used to get our fresh fish from there.
Sorry, keep going.
It's just something that really is a strong memory for me.
Lovely. And I never knew what it was like at Port Macquarie, because I only had been there recently, but a lot of people said that the fishermen's cottages from there, the row cottages, were all pulled down for development as well. So a lot of that has been lost, and I think there are a lot of regrets that we were so quick to bring in the bulldozers in those days.
Because it's history, and even though it's not so long, it still is part of our history there. The other thing that I really miss, and I wonder if anyone else remembers it, the roller skating rink opposite the Top Pub. So, where the Beach Hotel is now, which we used to call the Top Pub, which was a very dangerous place when I was a teenager. We're not allowed to go there. then opposite that was a roller skating rink, and we used to roller skate there. And I wonder if people remember that.
Well, 1300 65 999 if you do. Was Byron a bit rough in those days?
Oh, the top pub was.
Right.
Yep. It was quite a different time.
We're going to talk to Ian, Debbie and Father Rex Hackett in just a moment, sharing their memories as well. Father Rex Hackett from Grafton, good morning.
Good morning, Pam.
And you lived in the Bay between the 70s into the 90s?
Yes, I was appointed parish priest there from September 1977 until when I left to go to casino in 92. And then it was called the parish of Bangalow, and I lived in that two-storey brick place at Bangalow with all the trucks going past.
What? Yes, keep going, sorry.
Yeah, and there are so many memories. I had my 77-year-old mother with me when I drove into Byron Bay, and I couldn't believe it. I'd been in Port Macquarie, Coffs Harbour, Grafton, Lismore, and I drove in. I thought, what have I come to, Mum?
Why?
It was so small.
It's so small.
So small. And then we drove down the main street. I thought, Mum, this place looks like you could have a hitching rail out of a Western. That's what it was like.
Eloise is nodding her head.
Yeah, I remember, Father, that the main street, yes, there wasn't much to it back when we first moved here.
No, I said to Mum, it looks like it needs a hitching rail, Mum, for the horses. And then all the women wore those long seersucker dresses with anklettes and no shoes. And every shop had a sign up saying, no dogs allowed in the shop.
Had the Aquarius Festival happened at that time?
Oh, yeah. I went to that as a priest.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was that
We
like?
went up to see those people without any clothes. That was 1970, 71? 72, 73, something? Yeah, at Nimbin. Oh, yeah. But that's another part of it. Back to Byron Bay.
I'm going to have, yes. We're
You're
going
to have to go. But anyway.
No, we're going to have to get you in at some stage to have a chat about your life on the North Coast. But I'm just wondering.
I was born and reared in Grafton, and I'm back here as parish priest.
Father Rex Hackett, what were your parishioners like in those?
The parishioners were, Bangalow was really lovely farming people, fairly traditional. At Byron Bay, anything could go. So we had the long barreled wooden church, and in 78, 79 we built the new church, and the people down. So I was there. I built the new church and moved the bell, like the guy said, and then it was just fabulous because the people down there, they thought outside the envelope, outside the box, and we could get away with anything.
We won't go there.
But those, you know what, Pam? The nucleus of the Bay people are still there, and like I was only 35, so I became part of it. And by the way, you don't call it Byron. Excuse me.
Oh, you don't?
The Bay.
It's called the Bay. Okay.
Anybody who called it the Bay was born red.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, love.
Father Rex Hackett from Grafton joining us this morning, and you are welcome too, as we reminisce about Byron Bay, or the Bay, as I've been corrected. 1300 65 999. It doesn't necessarily have to be confined to Byron Bay, though. Memories of your neck of the woods from a couple of decades ago. Ian from Kurrabil, welcome to you.
Hello, Pam.
And you have some news for us about Mexican Mix.
Yes. I originally came from the Gold Coast, and, I went to the Gold Coast as a youngster in 1946, and I started a small furniture manufacturing business there, and over the road was a little shed that Mexican Mix started manufacturing their tortillas and corn chips and all that sort of thing. Friday night, they used to have, you could go down there and have a meal, and they played the guitar and all this sort of thing. So then when he started down to Byron, they used to manufacture there and ship them down.
So, Ian, just to go back, that was on the Gold Coast that they started?
Yeah, in Cronulla Avenue at Mermaid Beach.
Okay.
Ian, didn't he had a restaurant there as well?
Oh, yeah, it was not a restaurant, it was just a factory.
Factory, all right.
And just with like a little counter and a few tables and things. Yeah.
In Byron Bay?
No, in Cronulla Avenue, Mermaid
Oh, okay.
Beach,
And then
the Gold Coast.
he moved down to Byron Bay and he brought all that product down from there.
Well, they manufactured it there, and it was shipped down by vehicles.
And do you have memories of going there to eat?
Yes.
And what was it like?
Very nice.
Really traditional?
It was something new to the area when it started there.
It was very exotic, wasn't it, Ian, for
yeah.
Byron Bay? I mean, whoa, Mexican food. It was a big night out and something quite different.
You see, I find that really interesting because there are so many restaurants now.
Yeah.
How long did it take before, more people came into the area and started up?
Well, I don't know. At that stage, I only used to come down here with the surf club and things like that in those days. But I remember it as all the old tin sheds and things like that as you drove up.
It must have been a very much a meeting place, Mexican Mix, was it?
Yes, it was, and at the Gold Coast as well when they started out at the factory there.
How long did
It was a strange sort of place. Like the bags of corn would come there off the back of a truck, piled up out on the footpath, and when they first set their machines up, they had no end of trouble with them breaking down. And because of my background, I started out as an electrical engineer, and I'd be ever called over there to do a few of the repairs.
Ian, did you ever have your birthday at Mexican Mix?
No.
Oh, I remember it being a popular birthday spot.
Because
Everyone
mine
had
is
their...
right at Christmas Eve.
Ian, what do you miss from Byron Bay?
Well, it's become too Gold Coasty. That's why I moved down here originally, to get away from it. I had a business there for 50 years and then moved down here and to get away from the Gold Coast. Now it's here.
It's too much development.
Well, I'm up at Curraville. I'm on a property, but just the same. It's changing too much.
Ian, very many thanks for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Okay.
Debbie from Byron Bay also joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
And what are your thoughts as you listen to this conversation this morning?
I have lots of fond memories of being here in Byron Bay. But I was listening to Eloise earlier, and she was talking about the shops that are along the streets in Fletcher Street. And I grew up in one of them for about 7 years. We lived in the flat that is now Anna Middleton's shop. And it was like being right in the centre of town. It was just fantastic. As a 7-8-year-old, you're allowed to just go wherever you wanted to. But along that street, running down, there used to be a drain, an open drain with tea tree water in it. And we used to waddle in there and find tadpoles and collect things like that in there.
Different times very much, Debbie.
Oh, yes.
I remember that freedom, Debbie. It was different. Like, we just roamed the streets and ran around town, and it was, definitely, I don't know, it just felt like, I guess it wasn't the tourist population and people passing through. Everyone knew each other, and that's another thing I miss, walking down the main street and knowing everyone that you meet.
That's it, yeah.
A lot of people on John Wright's Facebook page saying the same. Thank you, Debbie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for calling in 1300 65 999. We'll take your calls across the morning. Pam from the Clarence Valley, you have some more fond memories of Mexican Mix.
Yes, just listening to you. I grew up, by that stage I was living at Lennox and went to high school in Ballina, so 77, 78, doing my HSC and all my friends. Mm-hmm. So after a surf, it would be drive out to Byron and hit Mexican Mix. It was divided into a cantina, which that's where we used to go, like a bain-marie pre-prepared, about half a dozen dishes. Chili con carne, chili colorado was my favourite. But about $2 or $2.50 a plate, a big plate with served with rice and corn chips. Mm. And then there was a restaurant attached to it, and that's where you tended to go for birthday celebrations or a posh night out. But I think there was a cafe, a little shop called the Rib Cage up closer to the beach, up near the top pub.
Ella's nodding her head.
And they served, before Mexican Mix, they served things like teriyaki burgers. I think it was a spin-off from the Aquarius Festival and the first sort of vegetarian food coming into town, whole food.
And then a little bit later, supper time blues. But I remember the Rib Cage because as teenagers we used to hang out there, and there was the pinball parlour. Did you remember the penny parlour?
Just the well, I think we went there to eat. We'd like surf at Lennox and Ballina and head out to Byron for the good food because there wasn't anything like that available, Ballina and Lennox. And so that's 30-odd, 40 years ago now, and I'm a chronic op shopper down here, and a couple of years ago I found a Mexican mug. They used to give them to the birthday people, or so, sell the Mexican hot chocolate.
Oh, that must have been.
It, and it's in place of honour in.
I was about to say that must have been a fabulous find.
Antique.
Pam, thank you so much for calling.
That's fine.
We must move on, and Alan from Grafton will be our last caller this morning in this hour. But if you'd like to call next hour, that's fine. Alan from Grafton, welcome. You worked at the council in the 70s.
Yeah, in 1970 I joined the council as a junior clerk,
Mm-hmm.
and even up to today, quite a few of the old staff still have get-togethers. So we had one very recently. Actually, the chief clerk, who was a very long time resident in Byron Bay, Bill Flowers. Most people would remember Bill. He just died recently there. And I've got very fond memories of the Bay back from the 70s. And actually, John and I. The very first band that I played in was with John and his dad, Reg.
This is John Wright you're talking about?
Yes, John Wright.
Okay,
yes.
What was the name of the band?
I can't.
You can't remember.
I remember we played at the bowling club and places like that. It was quite hilarious when you think back now. But it was great to hear John on the radio this morning.
And it must have been interesting times working at the council then.
It was, which, as you know now, is a backpackers.
Mm.
So I can remember going in there a few years back and asking the management, could I just have a look around the place and try and remember where my desk used to be? It was hilarious, actually. But yes, Byron has changed tremendously.
It was always a bit of a rabbit warren back then, wasn't it? The council chambers. I remember going sort of down these little alleys. Is it still a rabbit warren?
Yeah, they've changed a lot of it to suit the backpacker establishment, and it's hard to sort of recognise where everything was. But yeah, in the old days, it was a rabbit warren indeed, because we were really pushed for space.
They'd get one room and make it into three somehow, and everyone would work in these little boxes.
That's exactly right. But just a couple of other quick things. You mentioned before about the guy walking around collecting bottles and stuff.
Mm.
I remember George Ferris used to do that. Now, as we know, the Ferris village, which is in Bangalow, he used to collect funds to raise for a nursing home. He always wanted to have a nursing home in Byron, which never eventuated. It ended up in Bangalow, but I feel it could have even been George that was doing that. And another thing too with Mexican Mix, it was so popular, Mix, that he used to run 2 sessions. He used to run from 6 to 8, and then you get kicked out at 8 o'clock for the next session from 8 till 10.
Well, I guess he had a bit of he captured the market a bit, hadn't he, Alan?
Fantastic.
And you mentioned there, we were talking about Eric Ford, who was first mentioned,
yes.
and Cliffy Durian.
Yes. Eric's son lived next door to me in Bangalow Road, where I had my house. And so I remember Eric really well.
And you're in Grafton now, but do you get back to Byron Bay very often?
I'm travelling to Byron today to see an old workmate, Graham Rose. And, I don't know if anybody knows about Graham, but poor Graham had a dreadful accident about 18 months ago, and he's recovering, but it's a long, hard road for him. But I'm actually calling in to see him today.
Well, that's good news that he is on the road to recovery, Alan, and I'm sure that he will enjoy your visit, and it's lovely that you keep in touch with your colleagues from all of those years ago.
Yeah. And there's one other person down in Grafton here that I'd like to mention that lived in Byron Bay.
Sure.
It's Glenn Idale. He used to be known as the Barber of the Bay. And a lot of people remember Glenn, and he's still cutting hair down here in Grafton.
Is that right?
And did Danny take over his business? You know, down near Woolworths, there's a little, or was he like, he was located further up towards where Ringo's used to be. Is that right?
Glenn was in the old Bertoli's guest house, which was up sort of where that lady was talking about the rib cage and that. Glenn was in there, the old Bertoli's guest house.
Yeah, because that used to be a tea house as well at one stage.
Yes.
That's got a long history.
Yeah, it has indeed. Yeah,
Alan.
They were the good old days.
Alan from Grafton, thank you so much. Eloise Farris-Smith, thanks to you and to all of you who have called this morning. It's been fabulous sharing your memories. Thank you, Eloise, for staying on After Headlines.
Oh, sorry, Pam. I'm such a nostalgic, tragic...
That's fine.